Hi, and welcome to the 86th edition of Keen Minds. We're back from the summer hiatus with Season 7, Episode 1, Louis T. Steinhill. I'm Jen, a.k.a. Takata Cycle.
And I'm Tessa, and I might as well introduce you to my lozenge, which will be in my mouth the entire time.
Let's start it on allergy season. Tessa has a cold, I've got allergies, so yeah.
But it's a Blacklist time, so we love it.
I'm just glad we didn't have to wait another 9 months like last year. That was
painful.
I think I needed it last year, but overall I wouldn't have wanted to do it again.
No, it was discombobulating. And I know you took a step back from the Blacklist during the summer. I did a full rewatch of all 6 seasons. So I'm fully up to speed. I have a couple of new theories that are totally new. And I know that will be controversial. And I'm excited about this episode.
It was okay. I meant to do at least a season 6 rewatch before jumping in. Instead of pulling up the Blacklist, I ended up starting in on Burn Notice, that's been off the air for years. But it's been fun. I've been going through that. It's been my show to watch. Mm-hmm. Another good spy show. But I did watch the last episode of season 6 in the hour leading up to the season premiere. And got really angry because I'd forgotten how much I hated the conspiracy theory. Yeah, all over again. I was like, I'm sitting there turning it on, and I'm going, I don't even remember what happened with Diaz. What was the conspiracy? Oh, it was that. But following it, I think 701 was, it was fun. I enjoy a good illusion. I felt like it was pretty predictable at a certain point, before, they started pulling walls away, but not necessarily in a bad way. Things can be predictable as long as they're still fun, and I thought this one was fun.
I like for once that it's Red now being kidnapped, because for so many times Liz had been kidnapped. It was. I know people thought it was ridiculous, but it's a theme and it's there for a reason. Yet it was like, again and again and again. So it's fun that this time it's Red the one that has an epidural instead of Liz with a needle in her arm.
Yep. We're gonna make him the damsel in distress for for just a few minutes. Well, I mean, he's been captured before. I mean, he spent.
But it was for manly and fun things like being. Yeah, like being held in a Judas cross, or is Ansel Garrick torturing him. I mean, some like nice fun things, like when the guy had Samara up there, and he was like, kind of came to her and she had bumped him, that kind of things. I mean, fun stuff. This was different. Red was like feeling paralyzed. It was a very interesting insight into Red's character when he thinks he's paralyzed. It's funny that he doesn't go into like a full, oh my god, OMG.
Oh, I love it. I've been paralyzed before.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that was very interesting and very insightful on the team, that he'd been running most of his life, and so what happens if he can't run? And that's what they did. They made it so he couldn't run. I thought that was very interesting, and I have a feeling that's going to come back around somehow, some way.
Mm. Yeah, it was a very, I thought a lot of people were like, it was not that good. I thought, first, that is a setup episode for the next one, which is unusual to do in an opening season. You usually open with a bang, but this time it's not unusual. They have done this before. Remember Esteban? Esteban was very much like this one.
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah,
it was just setting up Agnes being kidnapped. Yeah, Everybody gets kidnapped all the time. Welcome to the Blacklist, where someone has been kidnapped.
I counted 27 fake death, 18 disappearances, and I think it's 18 use of doubles. That's what we're gonna get.
All right.
Identity is huge.
Oh, well, identity's been one of the main themes of the show since the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's been one of the long-running themes. So do we want to start through our characters? Did you have anything about the Blacklister specifically that...
Well, I thought it was very interesting because you can clearly see that this is not what it seems from the very beginning. In fact, some people have been saying that the illusionist is not the guy who was acting up as the cop, but it is the woman.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
I mean, certainly Red knows this woman. I mean, that much seems obvious to me.
When we get down to Katerina, I have a theory that I was bouncing around with another friend that she put it in much better terms than we ended up talking about it. I really like the theory, and when we get down to her, I have some thoughts on the blonde woman.
Let's start by the guys who have less to do this episode.
Yeah, Wrestler didn't have much. I was really...
Well, he didn't have much, but he had a very important part. He's like, I promised Red I wouldn't say anything, and there is big black mouth saying all about this.
I mean, in his defense, Liz had already thrown it out there. It wasn't
No, I'm saying he did good.
Oh.
I mean, that was a jab at Liz. Like, yeah, you're a blabmouth.
Yeah.
We promised Red we would not say anything. You kept on me all last season saying about, like, don't say anything. And then you come here. And
that's Liz in a nutshell. She goes at something until she decides to flip the switch, and then she flips the switch. It's all on her terms.
Yeah, Liz two-sided things is two-sided. My side and my side.
Yeah. It's, what was it Tom said back in season 2? You're gonna do what you're gonna do. You always have. I mean, that's Liz. That could be her life motto. And poor Wrestler's just getting the whiplash from it.
Yeah, and then Wrestler, I mean, she really made Wrestler look like an idiot.
Poor guy.
Because there it is, like he's saying, and you knew about this, and Wrestler is like, I don't know. I mean,
Wrestler straight up said, he said, I told Reddington I wouldn't say anything.
So, I mean, that was basically what Wrestler did. And also, I mean, he was actually making Cooper feel better about being taken by the charade. I mean, considering that he was taken when it was his turn and Liz to be taken in a fake hospital and all that. I mean, they all fell for it.
Yeah. I mean, and why wouldn't they? It's not it was a well-constructed illusion. The way that they played the guy at the embassy was fantastic. I didn't see that coming. I probably should have. I mean, but I thought that was the
well, they play with the emotional state. That's why you don't see it. Because you're in an emotional state, you think your friend is taken, they don't know what the relationship is, but they also know that, hey, this guy really wants to get Reddington into their clutches.
Well, they're also playing off of the FBI being somewhat predictable. They have their procedures that they follow, they have trust in other government organizations, and so they are leaning into the fact that this government organization is going to trust, even though it's another government's organization, they're still going to trust them. And so and my question is, and you mentioned this when I made a post a few days ago, I guess it was Saturday, we're recording this on Sunday, but the file that they got on Cooper had his his birth year is 69, but they had him listed as 49. And you made the comment that
64.
I'm sorry, 64.
64.
You made the comment that it was from back in 2013, which would make sense, but the guy...
They even said it in the episode.
Well, here's the thing.
You disappear in 2013.
Hang on. But that was before they got the file. And that's where my confusion comes there. Because that seems like that would make sense, but it was before they got the file they made that comment. So I'm wondering...
Before the woman saw the file. The guy...
They may have had it,
the file before. In order to say, like, hey, in 2013, you basically disappear. They don't have anything new on you. And that makes sense. They're all UD 14, UD 13, OC.
Yeah, maybe because I mean the Louis T. Steinhill was talking to one of the ladies that worked in there, and she was telling him that it was taking time to get the full file together, this and that, and then he appeared to walk it straight up. All of that was happening after the fake embassy official met with Cooper, and so you definitely got the impression he had just gotten the file. Maybe not. I mean, I guess, they could have gotten I guess they could have known that it was difficult to get that information because there was nothing on there. They may have had that piece of information.
That's what I took it, that they had that. They were trying to get something else, but it was classified, so they couldn't get it.
It's all I could think of. I have a long-running joke at the office whenever anybody starts running numbers past me. I said, I'm sorry, I'm a words person, not a numbers person. And I mean, so that's always my joke. That's exactly what I thought of as writing team. So whoever's in charge of the continuity there, they're obviously a words person, not a numbers person. Someone did not run the calculations. That makes a whole lot more sense, though, and that lines up a whole lot better. I prefer that, if nothing else.
No, I tell you, after doing a 6 seasons rewatch, my already considerable respect for the writing team has increased tenfold. I don't know if any of you have followed, but I posted, the point of view. I also reblog a post by a friend in Reddit, and she just tracked the way they use words to create a story. It's fascinating. I mean, this is no slouch team, and sure, there are gonna be some messes up. It's impossible to avoid when you have 22 episodes per season.
And we're on season 7. Yeah, it's
unavoidable. It's human nature, but all in general, it's pretty impressive. So you want to talk about Aram and his nanny search?
God. Okay, and can we just talk about, is he dating somebody? Cause
I guess he was trying to date, but now he and Wrestler are playing chess.
Okay, so he and Wrestler are playing chess. I thought he was playing chess with the chick that slashed someone's tires, and I was going, Aram, that's not...
No, that's when he said... Wrestler was like, oh, no, you gotta start dating again, and then sign him on, and they're both like horrified.
Yeah, I had someone ask me why I don't date very much, and I'm like, because I'm a writer, it's all going through my head. But yeah, okay. I was gonna be a little disappointed if it turned around and he actually was dating somebody, because that's just... I know that there's been some months in between, but this is supposed to be the love of his life. I
think by now we're on probably 8 months or so, or 6 months or so.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of time. There's a 6-day split between last season and this season. It wasn't a full several month split. It was 6 days.
No. This is starting right after.
Yeah, because Dembe said he went to Paris 6 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do love it when they drop stuff like that in to give us a little bit of a timetable, because it drives me insane when I try to figure out timetables and they're like this.
Well, they're being intentionally obstructive.
Oh, I know.
And we'll get in there when we get to Liz and her. So I found it very funny when Aram has, I told you, Dayquil. That's what I needed to eat. When Aram it's giving us the rundown of what's going on.
I have that in my notes. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, yep, you're gonna need therapy. I'm gonna need therapy just hearing that.
I said, and in which a ROM is the entire audience going, we all need therapy now. But the problem is, the last time Liz tried to get therapy, the lady decided to try to make her a serial killer.
Yeah.
No therapy for them.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. Although it did free her up. I mean, she was so much happier just stewing people up and all that. It was, you know, I mean, if you're gonna do it, you might as well be happy doing it.
Yes.
I mean, she basically roasted 2 guys alive in Alaska. She was like, yeah, I'm good.
You know what? That's different. When someone's coming at you, it's entirely different.
Well, Aram wasn't like that. And then, but then there you go. Aram went from needing therapy for killing a terrorist to like, hey, you know what? Next time you do that, I'm going to shit some bad stuff at you.
Yeah, but I loved that bit with Aram and now I need therapy too. But excuse me. I'm just really glad because for a while their shows had I think it was a pretty short stint, thankfully. I hate flashback episodes. I hate them with every fiber of my being because they litter just pieces. It was The Major was the one they did in season 2. They littered just enough that it made it incredibly difficult to skip the episode. Because they had things that were super important to what was going on. Barely in it. We got Tom's, what he thought at the time was his real name in that episode. I mean, yeah, that was that one. I mean, just little pieces that were very important at the time mixed in with this horrible flashback episode that a lot of shows think are necessary to try to keep people up. I was very happy they went this route rather than wasting an entire episode doing it again. Because we're about that time that it's been a long while since we've had a good recap and there's a lot going on and I don't know how people casually view this show. Like, I don't know how they keep up.
I have my test, among them my brother-in-law, my sister and my brother-in-law, and they all keep up more or less okay, which is surprising.
Okay.
They're the target audience defined, older, well educated. They're just the kind of people for whom. They may not remember the little details, but they're following surprisingly well, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the way my brain works. Do you have anything else for a ROM?
Nope, that was it.
How about Cooper?
Oh, Cooper, we got a lot to say about Cooper. He
does. Do you have anybody else you want to go into before Coop?
No, I'm ready to jump into Cooper because Cooper I was excited to read that we're going to get that episode 4 is going to be the Kuwait incident.
He deserves a good episode coming up. He really does, especially an episode that deals with his past.
Yes, and then we're also going to explore Wrestler and his father.
Whoa, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. Yay!
It is in one of the things. We're going to get an episode in which we're going to go back to the origin story of Wrestler and the father.
Oh, going back to Detroit. Let's go. I'm
very excited about that. Because I've always suspected that there is a thread that connects all the people in the Blacklist, especially the task force.
Red put the task force together. There has to be something. And I noticed, and I thought of you when he said it when I was watching the other night, him saying that he worked with Red. Because you've said for years that you think that they actually worked together, that they knew each other, that when he turned himself in, that wasn't the first time that Cooper had physically seen him. And so that was just a confirmation there that he did know him. And So what?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you lean right now? About Red. Did Cooper's? I
He
felt
served with Red. He said that. In fact, this is
yes, but do you think the Red that we know is the Red he served with?
Yes. I've always said he's not an imposter in the sense that he's the man known to the US Navy as Raymond Reddington. I've always suspected that he had another identity. I always suspected that identity was prior to enter the Naval Academy. And at the time, before we heard the excommunicated thing of his father, I thought that he went in already as a spy in the Naval Academy. Now we know father probably just threw him away and he just took another name, and I always suspected Fitch to be the guy who gave him another name and put him in the academy.
That would make sense.
Yeah. In fact, I think that when Cooper said it made perfectly obvious. He inquired about a detail that was classified that Raymond Reddington would not have discussed with anybody, and nobody outside that mission would have known about the testimony of a soldier in the case of a counterintelligence officer that was killed.
I definitely think that Cooper believes him to be the Red that he knows. If that's accurate or not, wait to see. But I think that Cooper believes that, and I think that I felt like that was confirmation at the end when he's talking to Liz. And they're talking about why she didn't tell him. And he says, what was the line? Well, apparently he rose from the dead he rose from the dead once before.
And 30 years ago, he can do it again.
Yeah, apparently Reddington died 30 years ago. He rose from the grave once. I'm pretty sure he will again. That was the line. And so I got the impression that Cooper, right or wrong, believes that Liz is incorrect, that Raymond Reddington is at least the Raymond Reddington he knew.
Yeah, I think that is a masterful way in which they have presented us with an answer, but no answer in the Blacklist is ever black and white. Is always a way to sedge out of it, and so that all theories keep going. But to me, it's very clear. There are just way too many people by now that have been introduced to us that call him Raymond in the most intimate of situations when no name would have been doing okay. And yet there he is. I think that Red is the Raymond Reddington, even though he had an identity. And I'm starting to get glimpses of what that identity is. Nothing I can share yet because it's not formed. But definitely, I think that he is. I am with Cooper. I think that is Raymond Reddington. And I think that it's interesting the way they had Cooper just not even go there anymore. Like, he was the one who gave her the paternity test. And this time, he's like, you guys are so messed up. I don't even want to step in there.
Yeah, it goes back to Liz having to find her answers for herself. It's the same reason that, well, there are a lot of reasons Red didn't tell Liz about Tom, mostly because he hired him from the beginning, but part of the reason he didn't just blatantly tell her who he was because she wasn't going to just trust that. She has to find answers out for herself. And I think that's kind of what Cooper's running with right here, is that he found his personal confirmation that he trusts in, that, he believes, but he is also aware that even if he explained all of his reasonings to her right there, it wouldn't convince her. She has it in her head, and until she sees something for herself, she's not going to believe it.
I think I actually have a slightly different interpretation of that scene than you. I think that Cooper would have considered telling her. And that's why he said that, he rose from the dead once. But when he asked why, he said, when I thought he was my father, I hated him for abandoning me. And I think that's when Cooper just looked at it and said, this is really not my place to say. because this is a deep family issue. I mean, this is Liz basically saying, I love him better when he's not my father, because then he really loves me. As my father abandoned me. And I think that deep inside Liz knows that Red is her father. She's going through a lot of things in her mind to make her actions be okay. You don't agree with me?
Uh, I'm still not. I don't know. I was telling someone earlier. I said I am much more interested at this point on who Katarina is over who Red is. I feel like I'm so burnt out on the Red question. It's like, I know he's her father in some form. Whether it's a father by choice, a father figure that has chosen to see her as a daughter and treat her as a daughter, or if it's a biological father. I really don't care. As long as it makes sense in the end. It really... As long as the story makes sense, I'm not sure it matters as much. Right now, and I feel like in a way I've felt like this for a long while, because Katarina's kind of been on the horizon for so long. I've been so interested in her, but I didn't know how they were going to bring her in, what they were going to do, any of that. And so now that she is in the process of being introduced in modern day, we think we know she's alive. I am much more interested in Katarina and her connection to everything, and who this woman is, and if she's Kat, all of that. Over Red.
Then you are over Red.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people who have been, I've come at this with a very different perspective than most people, because, contrary to what a lot of people think, that I never waver in my beliefs. That's not true. I actually waver every day, and on a consistent basis. I actually evaluate the evidence all over again, as if I were just presented with a Blacklist and I just finished rewatching the whole thing for the first time, and I'm like, I always come to the same conclusions. So I guess for me, it hasn't been really that much of a roller coaster, as it's been like an examination of, okay, so how do they present this time? And it feels like it's a carousel. They're going around and around this issue of who is Red and who is Red to Liz. And it looks like we're going back to the same spot. But we're not really doing that. I feel that we are going over, and we're going to probably have a very similar thing for Katarina when she appears. It is like, is Red, it's accepting that she is the daughter of Raymond Reddington, and then accepting that she loves and accepts him as his daughter, to loving and accepting him for who he is, not who he is to her. To the final round will be accepting him as his father and loving him for who he is. So it may seem like we're going back over the same idea, but it's not. And I think that is far more interesting like that. And for me, I haven't really gone on the carousel of, oh, he's not Raymond Reddington, he's Raymond Reddington, he's not her father, he's not her father, because every time that I examine, I always come back to the same answer, is like, he's her father, and he's Raymond Reddington, or they're Raymond Reddington, the Navy knows. And I agree with you. At this point, Katarina is becoming a very interesting character, because she's been the elephant in the room.
She really has been. Do we want to jump into Kat?
You want to jump into Katarina? Which Katarina?
I know, right? Okay, so I was talking with, I think it was the night of the episode. I was talking with Blacklister 214. And she made a post, and I got through about half of it, and I was I was just running on a million miles a minute that night, and so I read half of it, sent it over, commented on it, went back to go read the last couple lines. I went, oh, I just said exactly what you wrote. All right then. It was this idea. If I remember, I believe that. It's hard now, several days later, trying to piece together what she said, what I was thinking, and where it all overlapped. So, not taking full credit for this by any stretch. But I really like the idea. And it harkens back to a couple of different things. You've got the CIA officer that talked about Katerina being a ghost, a story,
amalgamation of several agents. You have Red talking about her being an illusion here after supposedly looking at her, and her being the one that captured him. So, I mean, he's not an idiot. The possibility of this woman being the one that's holding him is there, or having something to do with that is there. Especially when he starts piecing together that the cops don't actually have him. And I keep going back, and this is the one that I do know that I personally went back to. Legat from season 4. Legat was, for those that don't remember, Legat was the assassin that Tom he was like, everybody knows Legat. He was, the gold standard, this and that. Come to find out, there is no Legat. It is this... a boogeyman.
Yeah, basically. It's basically like a shell company, but it's a shell spy. It's a shell assassin that he
to be there when the day you needed it.
Yeah, and it creates this omnipresence for this assassin that makes him more vicious and more terrifying, because the shadows are more terrifying than the light. That is what I'm leaning towards with Katerina. That there was at least 2 women, maybe even more, that played the role of Katerina. There's the Katerina we know, Liz's mother, who I do believe is still alive. There was this blonde woman who really, I don't think looks a great deal like Lottie. Now granted, she was supposed to have had surgery and all of that, so I mean that's not really as big of a deal. But I think there were at least these 2, potentially more, we don't know, and that they filled the role of Katerina Rostova. And the cat that we know, the Katerina that we know that was married to Constantine, who was Liz's mother, who was in love with Red, who, was childhood friends with Ilya, the whole bit, Lottie Verbeek, that she's still out there somewhere, and she is who this blonde woman is trying to find, that she played the role, and for some reason she's trying to find, I want to say like the original Katerina. I really am only leaning that way because it's the first Katerina we've met. Who knows if she's the original? She may just be one of many. But the Lottie Katerina, the redheaded Katerina, Liz's mother. And she's trying to search that down. And if that's the case, it's also possible that we've got a similar situation with Red. That you had a Russian version and an American version.
I don't think that there was a Russian version of Red, but
No. I mean like Katerina Rostova was the Russian spy that was the multiple people playing the role of Katerina, and then Raymond Reddington was a name that several spies worked off of.
I do agree with a lot of that argument, the gist of that, and that's what I've been saying for that. And in fact, if you think about the things that Dom has said to Red, he said, "You were the architect of this charade that cost me my daughter." That charade is not that there was an Ilya who took the identity of Reddington, because that didn't take his daughter out. What took his daughter out of his life was the fact that she was working for the Cabal, and now she got everybody after her.
Yeah.
That's very simple. So there is a charade involved, and Red was the one who made it, and that's the kind of things that Red does.
Yeah. And I mean, that would be perfect for it. And if one of the other Katarinas did something to piss someone off, maybe.
Well,
Or
Liz's mother for sure
she did
pissed a
plenty.
lot of people out.
She did.
Well, I mean, there was if she was, and that's what I always said, that whatever people, some people argue that Katarina was not in the original plan and she's an add-on. It's like, no, every blacklister that you can put in there have had to do with Katarina. The first blacklister that doesn't have to do with Katarina is Garvey.
Wait a minute. They think that she's an add-on, that they didn't,
Yeah,
like,
a
she
lot of
wasn't part of the
people add
original
that.
story?
Yeah, that she was just an add-on, and I don't understand how that can be, because
She's too deeply entrenched in the mythology. I think
Yeah.
they must have had her from very early. Now, I mean, maybe not like when John Bokenkamp was sitting around scribbling notes down from their earliest ideas. I don't know, but you know, I would think
when they
since
started filming, they did.
when they started, like, once he pitched it and partnered with John Eisendrath, and they started the production of the Blacklist. I would be hard pressed to believe that he didn't know about Katarina. Maybe not every last detail about her, but a good portion of where they wanted to go with her.
I always say that you have to. You remember me saying that from the very beginning. The Blacklist is like one of those house of mirrors in the fair, in the street, in the fairs. You walk in and you think, and you see all kind of different things that are not where you see them. They're they're somewhere, but not where you think they are. It's an illusion, and Red is an illusionist. His counterintelligence work was really make illusions like Legat, exactly like Legat.
And that's what I think. I really am leaning, because I wanted to believe we had just met Katarina at the end of last season, because I've been looking forward to her for so long. I wanted to believe it, and so, but I was gonna wait, and you know, the first episode into season 7, I watched it and I went, I'm not convinced. And the long, you know, a watch and a rewatch in, some time to think about it.
Why is she looking for herself? Like,
yeah, well,
you know, there are good psychiatrists for that. If you need to find yourself.
Theoretically, though, she could be testing him. But at this point, why would she keep testing him when she's looking him in the face? If he's not going to give it to the fake, you know, that's where it crosses the line there.
When you start taking people's blood and you're like, you tell me or you die, that's not a test. I could get the test with a charade, and obviously he passed with flying colors.
Yeah.
But definitely there is something going on both with Raymond Reddington, and how do I know that Red was? He's always been a fan of bilocation, but he said not without consequences. And what was a consequence of, for example, that one of the things he said? And I know that if you accept that Red took the identity in 1991, none of this is going to make sense. But if you think Red is the Raymond Reddington known to the Navy, there was an instance in which somebody gave Sutton Ross a set of defective blueprints for a plane that couldn't fly. And he thinks it was Raymond Reddington. So it is possible that the Navy decided that they were going to give these plans and they were going to use the name of Reddington because that was credible or cool or whatever. Or that there was another Raymond Reddington that was sitting in a desk and making sure that whatever the real Reddington was going, people were following this other sap all over whatever, making whatever missions. And he was a decoy, you know, in a way, and that he was the one who gave those plans. And even could be the one from whom those coordinates from the submarine were taken from. Because I don't see, I mean, Raymond Reddington was a guy in the field. Where was he receiving coordinates? He was not a desk guy. He was out there being kidnapped and tortured and in prisons and all over the world, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that I've always suspected that Gideon incident to be a false flag operation. Maybe they use a submarine to blow it up in order to blow up something else, like in Ilya Surkov, in which they blow up a ship, but they were just trying to blow up the submarine cable. There is something about that entire situation that we seem to have a lot of Reds running around. One in the field.
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it could, for him, I think with Katerina, it was a working thing that it was supposed to be that there was multiple spies working under her name. Mm-hmm. There's, like I said, I've been watching USA's Burn Notice. It was on, I don't know, maybe I think it started in like I don't know, about 10 years ago. It's a little older. Not super old, but a little older. And it's a great spy show if anybody's ever interested in a good spy show. Fun spy show. But at least once or twice so far, he's had people because he's a Byrne spy, and he's had people because the name Michael Weston is something that's known in the intelligence community as this badass spy. Mm-hmm. Like, people will use his name to do things. Mm-hmm. And when they don't want to use their own. And he's like, that's not me, stop. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. And that sounds kind of like what you're talking about with Red here. That someone used his name. It may have been with his permission. It may have been outside of his permission that they,
Hey, when you're in the Navy, they don't need your permission. You're property of the government, so if they want to use your name, you'll like it.
And, if you're working covert ops, not going to have much... How
would you even know what was done?
Well,
only when you start getting crazy people coming for you.
How would you know? And better yet, how would you prove it wasn't you if your entire purpose is to be somewhere nobody can verify? Exactly. I mean, if you're working off the books, then... on covert black ops, you can't say, oh, but I was over here. Really?
Yeah.
Were you?
No, that's classified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. That's...
My defense is classified. My offense is classified. I'm classified. Hello. And I think that for Katerina, I think that and you know that I've said that for a long time. I do agree with you 10,000 times that there were more than one Katerina. And Red said it, she's an illusion. She's a figment. Nobody can find her. And if you look at the way that the writers have used words similar to that throughout 6 seasons, what you get is the major created you, the man who made you, the guy who invented you. This one doesn't exist because I invented her. That has been consistent words used for creating a character that didn't exist. So I do think that Katerina Rostova became basically a legat.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure that the Katerina that we met, Liz mom, was actually doing that much spying as it was creating this persona. I think I go one step further in that I don't think Katerina was really a KGB spy. I think she was CIA, and that's the reason why the first thing the CIA does is says, oh no, she didn't exist. Just like they said of Brian Osterman. No, he didn't exist. We don't know who he is. Tobias Ruther doesn't exist. And her job was to infiltrate the KGB. And once she infiltrated the KGB, because the KGB operated in such a compartmentalized way, so that if somebody was compromised, it couldn't compromise anybody else. It was just a very straight line of you just the person above you, and that's it. So I think that at that point, once she infiltrated the KGB, I think that they used that name to do all kind of counterintelligence things. To turn people, to test people, to put a bad intel out there. She became this mythic name. But what is interesting to me is that Katerina was tied to the cabal. she was actually in Russia investigating all the people that they needed to turn in order to end the Cold War, which was what the cabal wanted. And they find the people that they couldn't turn, like Berlin, and then they found a weakness in him, which was the daughter. They faked the daughter's death, and when he compromised himself, he ended up in Siberia, out of the way. So I think that Katerina was the person doing that. She was the one identifying those weak points and the ones, and the other Katerinas, I think, were creating the legend, because the legend made it so much easier.
So you think she was a handler of sorts?
No, I think I think that she was the main objective of having created the identity. And then there were other Katerinas, like this woman. And I'm not even sure that this woman could have not been a Russian.
Yeah, that was something really interesting with her, is, I mean, she didn't speak with a Russian accent. It's not like you can just look at people and go, oh, they look Russian. I mean, I guess if you know that they're Russian, you can go, oh, yeah, they kind of look Russian, but it's, you know, it's not like there are any super identifying extreme features that are super, super Russian or anything. The accent is going to give it away for the most part. And so the fact that they kept going back and saying, well, the woman's Russian, she's Russian, that was, I mean, so many people said it. We don't know her name, but she's Russian. Mm-hmm. The blonde Russian.
If you remember correctly, they did the same thing in
when Jennifer was searching it down.
Yes, the Russian, and they did the same thing with Berlin, the Russian.
I'd forgotten about Berlin, but they kept with the, I'm blanking on the woman's name that Jennifer spoke to.
Marguerite Renard.
Yeah. But she did it, and then these people that worked for Steinhill did it, where it was the Russian, and they waited for the other person to go Katerina Rostova. It was Jennifer with Marguerite, and it was Liz here saying, you know, we've talked about before that Red does this. He leads people to the answer. He won't lie to them directly, but he'll lead them to the answer he wants them to run with and let them come to that themselves. And that seems to be what's going on here. Now, the interesting thing is that Red called her Katerina, and he seemed to recognize her, and so that's what makes me think that she is basically a Katerina Rostova doppelganger, because I don't think he mistook her for his Katerina. I think that there is a kill order out on all of them right now. Or what was it, a kill order? Was that what the initiative was? And so he was trying to get to maybe all of them. I don't know, but he was trying to
they would find one and they would kill her, not knowing if it was the same. They would probably kill them all if he didn't know which one was the... And I think that it's all going back to the secret keeper.
And who knows, maybe he was trying to lead them to this other fake Katerina. That would have been great. Just didn't expect her to dose him in the middle of Paris.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she was aware and she was waiting for him. So unless the stranger betrayed him, it's like she knew that she would be coming for her.
I do wonder if he did, though, because, and this goes back to the fact that I just rewatched 622, is he said, I love you because I can trust you. And it's one of those lines that, having watched The Blacklist for so many years, it kind of keys off in your brain and go, oh, you just jinxed it, you know? And so I do wonder if he has, at least to a degree, betrayed Red somewhere. I don't know who he is yet.
He gave me a brother vibe.
Yeah? I mean, well, they obviously knew each other as children. They talked about knowing each other as children. And so that's, brothers, cousins, could have been family of some sort, yeah.
And one of the points you were saying before that we went on a tangent and got lost in the tangent is like...
tangent?
Yeah, we never do that. Was that, I mean, the name alone wouldn't tell you somebody's Russian. How many Americans have Russian names? They
Yeah.
sound perfectly. You want to say, hey, that's a Russian.
But they don't know her name. That's the thing.
Nobody knows
Like,
her name.
because they kept saying, who is this woman? We don't have a name. Well, the description then. She's Russian. How do you know she's Russian? Were they told she was Russian? Well, why were they told she was Russian? It was said so many times by so many different characters that there is a point there, especially since she doesn't have a Russian accent.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with Constantine. Constantine didn't have a Russian accent.
He was also going under the name Alexander
Kirk.
Kirk.
Yeah. Hard to do when you have a hard Russian accent. In fact, for that matter, Dom doesn't have a Russian accent. He has some accent of some sort, but not Russian. Unless we're talking about the fake Russian accent and talk about Beats when he's near Liz and trying to lead her in a direction like, hey, I'm Russian, beat some vodka. I mean, hello. Yeah, I mean,
Hi, I'm Russian, beats and vodka. I want to get a t-shirt for you. We need to make t-shirts, Keen Mind t-shirts. Hi, I'm Russian, beats and vodka.
Yeah, like I'm an Irish. You know, beer and green. I mean, that's what the first thing your mind goes to when you're trying to make your granddaughter believe that you're Russian.
Cliches, yeah.
Is I'm a beat and we're doing vodka and like hello.
Vodka, yes. I don't know. Like beats never scream Russia to me, but maybe that's.
Oh my God, they got huge beets. Is the source of most of the vodka is made out of beets.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense then.
And the sugar in
actually
Russia is made out of beets.
I don't drink vodka very much, so that would explain. It's not my drink of choice.
Yeah, and borscht and all that. I mean, beets is one of those things very entrenching in Russian culture. Okay. So yeah, I mean that was just. So I think that we're looking at a charade. I mean, this woman, I'm sure that she's a Katerina. Her name might even be Katerina. It's not an uncommon name. It has been used 14 times, Katerina, or its variants in the show, 14 times. And it's not that they cannot do names that they don't repeat. They have some that they have only been used once. Plenty.
Now, sometimes they have names of... I think they're going off like they have people that they know. Now, I will say, and this may be what they're doing. My guess is there's a reason when they repeat names, just this show. But I came across something the other day. I have, in my pilot episode, I have a minor villain whose name is Frank Armini. And, like, I was working on a later episode, and I was trying to come up with a name for a guy, and suddenly he became Frank, and it took me a minute, and I went, why are all my villains named Frank? So, I have no idea. Sometimes that just happens.
Tell us about the Frank in your life, Wes.
I don't know any Franks. The only Frank I think of is Frankie Sinatra, and I love him. So, I don't know. But apparently, my brain thinks for my pilot series, if your name is Frank, you must be sketchy. I don't know.
That makes life a lot easier because you meet a Frank and you know he's a bad guy.
I know. It's like people wearing plaid. What are you going to do?
And I identify a new one. When you share a glass of scotch in the show with someone, you're about to betray them. Every single occasion.
Huh. Interesting. I will probably go back and do a full rewatch after the show's done. So it'll be, especially, if Tom pops back up at the end. I will definitely go back and do a full.
Or if my theory turns out to be correct.
Which one?
Red is Red and Katerina is Carla.
Oh, well, why would that...
Fake her death again.
Why would that encourage me to do a full rewatch?
Just see where I was right.
Oh, okay. All right. Well...
That seems like a valid reason.
You guys should see her face. It's fantastic right now. I've missed our recordings.
So we have Katerina down. I mean, it was a brilliant plan. I mean, that was worthy of Red. Make it believe. That's the same thing that he did to Madeline Pratt. The same thing that he did to so many people, making them believe how he got in season 1, how he got Nico down by making me believe that he had killed the other guys and led him on with Mr. Vargas. I mean, this is the kind of stuff he does all the time.
Illusions.
Yep. So it was good that he got it done, and he was paralyzed and all that. I find it funny that he started to flirt with the nurse. Did you catch that?
I mean, it's red.
Yeah. Did you catch that he was not in Paris when he looked at the phone and they had a football team?
Yeah, that was, as soon as I saw that, I went, that's not a French phone, but okay. I mean, it was in English. It was, of course, he was never supposed to see the phone, but you would think that the illusionist would have, that he would have taken phones away or something.
Or gave them, like, fake phones.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a weak link in his
I think that they think, and it's true. I mean, most of those things rely on an emotional moment. Most of the charades, they go into something that is fast. You don't have time to think, and you don't notice.
Yeah, and they were betting on the idea that if they convinced him that Katerina had betrayed him to the point to make it so he could never run again, which is his thing. He's very good at running. If she basically made him vulnerable for the rest of his life, even if the FBI got him out of there, he'd be useless. I mean, he wouldn't be able to do, maybe not useless, but he wouldn't be able to do most of the stuff.
Mobile.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to do most of the stuff that he's been doing for years. He just, in many ways, he would just be a sitting duck. I mean, I'm not trying to make too much of a joke on. But
it's hard to be a criminal on the run when
you can't run.
You cannot walk. When you cannot even walk.
And so I think they were betting on that rush of anger there at her and just saying, screw her, I'm going to give away all of her secrets. And so they seem to think, though, that he thought that the Katerina he met with was the real Katerina.
I don't think that would work because that's her hiring these people. So I think that they were counting on him either not remembering or just thinking, well, at the end of this thing, if they got a directive to kill her, maybe I can save her. Maybe if these people will get her, maybe she will not be killed.
I don't know.
Or he's so desperate to get back into U.S. custody that he will give us Katerina.
Yeah, see, that didn't... I don't know. I think there's a missing piece there. I think it's still to come. It's just one of those things, like you say regularly, put a pin in it and come back to it. There's something off there, and that's going to be a question that I'll look for an answer for moving forward.
Well, it seems like what she wanted to know for me, unless she started asking different questions once now she's face to face, what she wanted to know where is Katerina Rostova. And I think that it makes sense. If this woman is a Katerina double, or was one of the Katerina Rostovas, it makes sense that she is very eager to give them the real Katerina, or the right Katerina, and save herself.
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
The sooner they got the right one or the another one, she's safer.
But I guess the question becomes, while he thinks he's talking to the French police, if this theory is correct, I'm not saying it definitely is. It's the one I'm certainly leaning towards right now. But if the theory is correct and there's multiple Katerinas out there, a French cop likely wouldn't know that. And so and the moment that, at one point Red believed him to be a French cop. And so him coming up and saying, where is Katerina Rostova, there would be no, this woman just had you beaten. If she didn't, I'm trying to get, I feel like there's so many.
She would have said, you know what, this woman doesn't deserve my
Yes,
whoever
but,
she is,
but
this one doesn't deserve.
But giving her up would do them no good in finding the real one. Does that make sense? Giving blonde Katarina up would do them no good finding the real Katarina. Or at least our Katarina.
Well, it might derail them for a bit, enough time for him to tell the real Katarina.
And then follow him. Okay, maybe.
Or it might be a link to the real Katarina that they have to follow. Because in order to be a Katarina Rostova, they had to have known something about Katarina. And that remember, when you're trying to find somebody like Lord Baltimore or Samar, you need to know things about them.
Mm-hmm.
And the more things you know about them, the easier it is to find them.
Yeah, I feel like there's a piece in there that we don't quite have the answer to yet.
But I'm pretty sure that this woman is not Liz's mother.
I don't think she is. I mean, just the way she was talking about, the Liz Keene intel, is it accurate? It was very clinical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure that she would know. Like, it didn't seem like she knew that Liz is Masha.
But here, well, I mean, she would have to, because that was all over the papers.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true.
Now, I'm going to surprise you with whom. I think that this woman will be asking for her daughter, and I'm going to surprise you too about who I think his daughter is.
Whose daughter?
This woman's.
Okay. You think that she has a daughter out there?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that
Jennifer?
is Jennifer. I think part of that charade, and when they had to run, was like to make the daughter safe. That maybe that's what her anger is. And then things, I mean, basically now she's lost. She's gone and nobody knows where she is.
It's interesting. I'll be very curious. Like I said, I'm a lot more interested right now in answering the Katarina question than I am the red one. And so, I don't know if that's intentional on their end. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I don't care who red is right now. I care who Katarina is.
I found one of the things that I wanted to touch in here, because it's a very interesting thing that Red said about Katarina, is that some people have soulmates. Katarina Rostova and I share one. I know that a lot of people have interpreted like we share a soulmate. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, what is this, big love? Wrong show, guys.
Well, I interpreted that as they shared a soul, as in they were soulmates. That's
Beyond
how I
soulmate.
Heard it.
Yeah.
That's how I heard the statement.
And for a lot of people, when people are married, it is said to be like their soul becomes one. Mm-hmm. And I found it
likely comes from a biblical background with, the husband leaves the family to marry the wife, and they two become one.
Yeah. So that is, to me, was a very interesting thing, especially in light of Carlarina, because if I'm right, and just you have to see
you let me go on my go.
And your face, yeah. I mean, I wish that I could describe Jennifer's face in this moment. It's like she's like, oh boy, here we go again.
I had someone ask me the other day about the Carlarina theory, and like to explain. I was like, that's not my theory. That's not my theory. I don't know.
Well,
it's not mine.
From that point of view, let's say that he said, we share a soul. That is a woman he was married to. So I think that, and from the writing perspective, if you look at this thing, you will introduce, from a writing perspective, you will introduce a character, even if it's under a different name early on. If she's a central character, she cannot be introduced in season 7 for the first time.
She can be. Because they have introduced Katarina. We heard her name first in Did we hear
Season
her?
2.
Season
220.
2?
220.
And so hearing her name with the type of character that she is, you could do that. You could have her, because you're not supposed to know if she's alive or dead for the longest time. So I think that they could introduce her. I wouldn't see that as a faux pas. Now, I agree that it's possible it could have been introduced as someone else. I just disagree that it's Carla. I mean, I don't.
We're taken by the illusion.
And I have said since this theory came out, that I could very well be wrong, and if it turns up and Carla pops back up and suddenly she's Katerina Rostova, I will be the first one to say Tessa was right.
Buy your chocolate fedora and eat it.
You will not need to pat yourself on the back. I will pat you on the back for you.
Yeah, this is to me, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that he's married to this woman. He can't betray her because it would be like betraying himself. And that's, Redford has many relationships, but he's never married.
I think he loves her, whether he was married to her, whether he wasn't. I'm not sure that really matters with him. A piece of paper to Red doesn't mean a whole lot. It's...
Yeah, but loyalty does.
Exactly. And so I think that's why he couldn't betray her, because he loved her, she meant a great deal to him, and he can't betray her. And so...
There were a lot of things that we saw in this episode. Hold on, that thing about Liz is important. About Liz being so angry with Red, because she has mentioned many times, like you don't have a right to be looking for Jennifer. You abandon her. You abandon your family.
Well, it started in the pilot. She said that he didn't have a right to talk to him. He didn't have a right to talk to her about family because he left his on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that has been a running theme of abandonment of family that has stuck with her so deeply. It's one of the reasons that she wanted to adopt, was because there was this feeling of being abandoned. And she talked about it, she always thought her mother was going to come back for her, that she created this illusion in her mind that her mother was this ballerina off dancing across the world, that she was going to come home to her someday. And she wouldn't be this abandoned child. She always had that. And Tom had a similar reaction, and that he talked about when she asked him if he wanted to follow up on the Scotty thing in season 4, I think.
Yeah, he felt 4. Abandoned, and they're not. And we have a third adult that grew up as an abandoned child, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. And they all have the same thing, this abandonment thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a running theme that's been very, very strong through this.
Another thing that we learned in the episode was this very tiny little thing of Liz saying that Raymond Reddington died in 1991. There you go.
I have not run a timeline in a very long time for this show. It started breaking my brain. Mm-hmm. And so, is 91 the wrong year?
Yes,
for that?
It is.
It was 90.
Exactly. That's the time he disappeared. And
90.
Granted, he could have died. He could have died after he disappeared. But the thing is, it's interesting because it's one of those things that the Johns love to do. They give us a little something there, and you go like, what? So now they're retconning the whole timeline, and then you start thinking, wait a minute, let me see it. And that's why I went and I did from every character perspective. What do they believe at the end of each season? It was very important. Because Liz is basing all her information on, she learned the fire, we know that the drowning made the newspaper. So that is a day that she has to have fixed. She knows the day that Katerina went in the water in Cape May, because there were papers about it. She also learned last season that there was a surgery on October 3rd of 1991. Those two events are in 1991. And she's basing the death then on what? On the fire. A fire that she found with a stay in a Dover motel. Remember she told Jennifer last year, like, I investigated that, and I was taken to a motel in Dover, but that's a dead end. And with that date of that stay in the Dover motel, Jennifer looks for a fire that happened that date in the Rehoboth Beach house, and she finds it. So all of those fire things are based on that Dover stay motel. But one thing that is interesting is that Liz doesn't know that she was left with Kate. She thinks she was in foster care.
Yeah, and that was interesting. And she didn't actually agree to that because
Aram was repeating the stuff.
And she said, yeah, it wasn't basically, but it was something very similar to that. It was, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so she wasn't saying, you were exactly right. It was, you got the gist of it, let's move on to the next piece. It wasn't anything that she felt needed to be corrected. So she may or may not know that Kate had her. It may have been, because she was adopted by Sam, it may have just been something she didn't feel the need to correct. It didn't weigh enough on the story for her at that point to correct Aram on that.
But then the 91 date is the indication. And what I'm thinking here is that we have if you remember in season 2, the fire was a classified thing. Braxton was going into a classified network to find, armed with the house, the fire, and the girl, to find the location of the fulcrum. So that fire is not something easily findable. Yeah. I'm thinking that fire in the Rehoboth Beach was nothing to do with the fire where all of this happened, and that Dover Hotel is not the motel where Kate was staying. I'm thinking that's a fire set as a decoy fire in order to create a false trail that led to Raymond Reddington, because it was a house where Raymond Reddington rented a house. So it was the house, Raymond Reddington house, there was a fire. It created a narrative that was easily followable. The one thing that impressed me, because Cape May was a weird place. The East Coast is full of beaches in which to walk into the ocean. Lots of them. It's a whole coast you can walk into the ocean. Why Cape May? And Cape May and Rehoboth Beach are literally across each other in the narrowest point of that bay. So it occurred to me that Katerina doesn't seem the kind to be suicidal, to be walking in the water 1, 2, 3 times and then about to jump from a building. You know my opinions of Rasvet. Nice tale, Dom, you did good. I'm thinking that Katerina had a plan to make that drowning that involved a boat and then going across the bay to Rehoboth Beach, and then she just covered her tracks in creating a false fire. Since they were likely to know there was a fire, that fire led them up a path instead of the other path, the one that is not findable. Because if that had been the fire, Braxton, Peter
would have found it easily.
Yeah, he would have found it. That's not classified. Everybody knew. Jennifer had a piece of paper saying, "Hey, there was a fire here." Something in this whole charade, and if you think about it, Katerina stages a drowning, which is a dangerous situation to do. You can really get killed here. That's not an easy way to stage a death. You have to have things planned. It was easy enough for her to do if she had help or whatever. But why on earth after that she's going and being seen 2 weeks later in the ferry, in the Cross Sound ferry, to give her mom what? Like she could have met her in the middle of the woods or a night in a motel. Why a trail? The Prague thing with the picture. There is a trail that doesn't make any sense to me, and almost feel like either somebody was creating that trail with sightings in order to draw attention away from where she was, or somebody was creating a sighting in order to keep Velov engaged in finding Katerina, not saying, okay, well, I guess she drowned. Because something in there doesn't scream to me right. That doesn't scream the Katerina that was so able to, get out of any dark situations. Don't you agree? There's a little weird things going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go back. It's been a while since I watched CrossFit, so I would have to go back and watch it for the order of everything. That's really, hence the reason I wanted to go back and do season 6 again. I just didn't get around to it.
Rasputin and the Brockton College Killers, in my opinion, is the motorload of canon in that show. In that season, that was
I really liked Brockton College Killer. I liked that one.
And I think that Rasputin is important to watch, and when you rewatch, just look at the things that Liz is leading. She's leading the story. So the important things in Rasputin are the things that Liz didn't say.
That's exactly what I was saying about with Katerina, is the leading in. We've seen that in multiple places. Red does it when he's trying to get someone to something. They were doing it with Katerina, both with Jennifer and with Liz here. You know, the Russian woman, Katerina Rostova. So I mean, that's been something that people have done across the board in this show, where they are leading. It's usually Liz, maybe because Liz is so desperate to find this answer that I think she's easier to manipulate with that.
Yeah.
That's why you need people like Wrestler, like Cooper, and her whole team around her.
Like, whoa,
this doesn't
make any sense. Yep. And I think Wrestler and Cooper are definitely that. Although I have a feeling that the one who's going to go into Kozlov is Aram. I think Aram is going to investigate that name and is going to dig things up. Because even Wrestler last season was like, that doesn't make any sense. That story makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. Especially when you think that the banks, and Aram said at this, I'm happy that he included that there was no reason for anybody to become Reddington, because the banks have never seen Reddington because the accounts were not opened by him. Yeah. So anybody with the same way that they got the money out of the Gideon stuff with fingerprints and the passport, that was it. It was in a password. That was all that was needed. So there's something in all this that is striking me. The other thing I wanted to mention was, and you're going to appreciate this, because you know the Blacklist writers, if they like an idea, they will hit you on the head with it as many times as they can possibly get away with it. Right?
Yeah.
So remember that whole cookamamie story of Tom and your mom is a double?
Yes. From Redemption. Yeah.
Yeah. And Howard is like, no, she's not your mom. Of course, when you see them together, he's reacting to her as if she is Scotty, because she is Scotty. He just used that in order to create an emotional separation between Tom and her mom, because she was like, oh my God, I don't think I can spy on her anymore because she's my mom and I've seen her suffering. And Howard is like, no, she's not your mom. She's a double. This is all a thing.
See, that's possible. I mean, because Howard's hella manipulative. Oh, Howard. Oh, Howard.
I love Howard. I hope they bring him back.
I'm still so sad that that's where it ended. I'm like, no, I need to know. Because to this day, I don't think Howard, I think that he was very much like Red. Ends justify the means. If I have to lie to my son, use him, this and that, I'm gonna do it because it's gonna get him to a place that he's safe. And I think for at least a time, Howard truly believed that it was a possibility that she was a double.
Well, but you remember when they come face to face and he said, you killed the kid, and he's like, our son, and she's like, that was not it. I mean, I know that
maybe
it
not
was
maybe
so
not a
powerful.
double, maybe not a double, but he did. I think he either thought she was or she was a spy.
Oh, she definitely a spy.
I still to this day think Scotty was a spy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you. I think in fact that
I think Tom came by his certain set of skills very naturally.
Oh yeah, I agree. But I mean, I know that it's tempting to think that he's there because you want to believe that he wasn't really using it, but it was very, what he did basically is telling, at the moment that Tom started to, oh, you know what, I don't think so. He was at your funeral. I saw how, she was like, and I don't feel right about spying on her. And then he springs out, no, she's a double. She's not really your mother.
I do think that if nothing else, Howard thought that Scotty was a danger.
Yes.
Maybe not a doppelganger, but at least a danger.
Yeah. But he used the doppelganger to create an emotional distance between Tom and Scotty, because they were beginning to get close, and Tom was beginning to feel really bad about lying to her.
It was becoming his mother, not his mark.
Exactly. And at that point, and I thought very much, I did this rewatch in season 6, and one of the things that I wanted to really get my attention, I thought that in this rewatch, the most important thing for me was to understand Jennifer. Because Jennifer, to me, was all over the place. Her actions, her reactions, the facial expressions, the way she looked like a wet mop at the beginning, and then she appears in 522, and she's a completely different person. And then she's all over the place, and she's like this super bad bitch, and then she's like, and I'm like this, and yet I trusted the writers, and I trusted the actor. I know Fiona is a phenomenal actress, so I'm like, there is something here I'm not seeing, and I know this is a clue, and I think it's a very important one. So I went back. And I track out like what everybody who got into those Bones identity thought. And I got to the conclusion that up until Ross, nobody's really saying that Reddington is not Raymond Reddington. They may think, oh, this is another identity. Ross is even saying, I wanted to get into the room with the guy who sold me that dodo bird. So here we are. So he's ready to take revenge on this guy as the guy who sold her the bird. And meanwhile, and when we get to Liz is like, oh, there's a bag of bones as my father. And I'm like, this doesn't quite make any sense, because in this moment, why would Liz be thinking that? Most people faced with a bag of bones that is identified as somebody, they would say, well, I guess either A, the ID is wrong, or they would not think, oh, this guy just took the identity.
Especially with as many botched DNA tests exactly. They've had over the years.
Exactly. So I started to think, what if what Jennifer did is exactly what Howard did? Jennifer knew exactly that Reddy's maybe not her father, maybe the bones in the back are her father. And maybe she wanted to take revenge of the father who abandoned her. And what better way? And the sister who had all the father's attention, and he was going around with her while she was, stuck with Garvey, which, let's face it, was not exactly a prize. And so she gets revenge on having her sister against her father, and get revenge of the two of them. And the way to do that is to make Liz believe that he's not the real Raymond Reddington. Therefore, I remove that emotional thing and let's go and get him. And then everything that I saw in her performance was absolutely perfection. She had this big smile, and Liz is like, and he's facing the death penalty, and Jennifer is like, look like the dog in that cartoon with the dog that And she could not contain the glee of having succeeded. And in fact, remember when she said, revenge is a bitch, especially when there is two of them?
Yeah.
Well, guess who was the two of them? Liz and Red. I'm going to use Liz against Red. I'm going to destroy their relationship and send him to death penalty. Yay. And then Liz says, well, he's searching to some surgeon who mated him to him. And Jennifer is like, what? And you could see that she's like, what? I can't believe, I can't understand this. This is not happening. I think at a point she realized there's something about this surgery that I must need. And then she's like desperate to learn. So something in there, and anybody who's interested in understanding a bit more of that, just watch those scenes with her. They are priceless. Once you start watching them, thinking she was just making this thing up. Either remove a part of the DNA test, or manipulate Liz in that highly emotional after she has been. And the funny thing is, Liz starts with a black eye given by Ross on her, and she ends up with a black eye. So it's like, so that's what I wanted to share in terms of the crazy theories of the year. My rewatch landed yet another one.
That's interesting. I need to go back and do a rewatch. Let's see.
Watch her scenes. Just you don't need to do the whole thing.
October is insanity for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I think that about goes through everything. I've got all my notes. Oh, there were two things I wanted to say about Red.
Mm-hmm.
One, there was that fantastic line that it was insanely
Karma Pharma.
Huh?
Karma Pharma.
Oh, that too. That was fun. The next time you want to convince me I broke my spine, you better damn well break my spine.
Mm-hmm.
That was just phenomenal. Oh, and there were just a lot of really good one-liners in this. I had a note back here under the, I'm doing air quotes, you guys can't see me, but air quotes, Katarina. They gave her some great lines. Like, she delivered them well. I don't know the actress. I don't think I've seen her on anything else, but she delivered them very well. The whole bit about kindness and, there's no room for kindness after she shoots the guy.
And she has the other guy shoot the guy. She's not even shooting.
Well, that's true. People. And she says, and Birdie say a kind word over his grave. It was just, I mean, if you ever have an exit line, it was perfection. I was like, oh, I like her. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, she's a fascinating character.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you think about she's going to end up being Agnes' nanny?
I don't know. I guess we'll see where it goes.
Well, they had the thing of her with Agnes in the, reading a book with her and all that.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I mean, I don't think she's Katarina. I don't think she's Liz's mom, and so that heightens the danger for me with that. But my question is, Liz is having such a hard time finding nannies. What happened to, like, the 2 or 3 that she and Tom had? Are they just terrified to come back? Did they all get serial killed? I mean, I don't know. I guess, to be fair...
lady, you're on your own.
I wouldn't blame her.
Well, also, it's been... Basically, Agnes had been out of her care for over a year, almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, in all that time, this nanny's just moved on.
Yeah, that's probably true, too. But I have a hard time thinking that in a year or two that suddenly every nanny in the area, that Liz and Tom could find one on their own. Several. I mean, because there were at least 2 that we got names of, and then suddenly she can't find anybody.
Excuse me. Who there was a better person in reading people? Actually.
That's true, Tom.
There you go.
Tom did the interviews.
As long as you're criminals, I can read you fine. But the moment you're normal, I got no idea what you're doing.
Yeah. That pretty much sums Tom up. I love that.
And Tommy's like, yep, I can read you, I'm fine. Liz is the contrary. I'll read the criminals, you read the normal people.
Yep.
If they're encoded, I can read them fine. If they're normal, yeah. Tom was the one with the friends. Tom was the one who read normal people. It's like, yeah, she I mean, they together, And it's amazing how it was fun when I was rewatching the parts with Jennifer, because as I was going through and watching season five was traumatic, but it was interesting how Tom made her light and Jennifer made her dark.
Yeah.
And yet she trusted Jennifer like nothing. Like, oh, sure.
It's family. When she counts you as family, she trusts you. It's just the way Liz is. All right. I think that's about it.
Catch us next time when we finish this two-parter, which should be a lot of fun because we have stunt doubles for about everybody, and Dom has a rifle.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to be able to watch live this next weekend. It's my alma mater's homecoming, so I'll be out of town. October's just so busy. So busy. But we'll do what we can to get it watched and recorded as quickly as possible. And you can listen to us on iTunes, on YouTube, and SoundCloud. And you can talk to us on Twitter, on Facebook, and Tumblr.
And I'm in Reddit if anybody dares in the jungle.
I have a Reddit. I opened it and I left it alone. So that's the way I roll. I tend to be a one platform kind of gal. All right, till next time.
All right, guys.
Bye.